Good morning, Year 10. I hope you're well and having a lovely day. For your do now, I would like you to write down 3 quotations from an Arundel tomb from memory. For at least one of these quotations, do a quotation explosion to explore language and structure devices. So please pause the video for about 5 minutes to do that now. So today we'll be looking at Love After Love by Walcott. This is probably my favourite poem of the cluster that we're looking at, so I really hope you enjoy it. For this lesson you'll need a printout of the poem that you can annotate, a pencil for first thoughts and ideas, and different coloured pens or highlighters. So make sure you've written the date and title, have your poem stuck in your book, and then we can get started. So Love After Love. What can we work out from the title? What associations do you have with the words love after love? What do you expect this poem to be about? Pause the video to jot down some ideas. Okay, so you may have thought a breakup or happy for love again. So it could be about recovery after a breakup, loving again, or potentially moving on. Love after love, first reading. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, "Sit here, eat." You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. Give yourself time to read over the poem a couple more times, getting to grips with its content. It's okay not to understand every word or idea at this point. You're trying to get a feel for the poem. So what's the mood of the poem? Who is speaking? Who are they speaking to? And how do they feel? Pause the video for a few minutes to jot down some ideas. Okay, so let's think about the speaker. The speaker in Love After Love is recovering from the breakdown of a relationship. This poem is a journey to loving yourself after you have experienced heartbreak. Walcott presents the idea that sometimes in a relationship you can lose yourself and your identity as a result of sharing your life with somebody who has ultimately hurt you. It has a reassuring tone, conveying the notion that things will get easier over time and life can be rich without having to be in a relationship. And I would argue that it doesn't necessarily have to be an abusive relationship. It can just be a normal relationship because, of course, the idea of having two people sharing their life, it's natural that parts of yourself you'll compromise away as a result of being so intertwined with another person. And although that isn't necessarily a bad thing, it can result in people losing themselves and who they are and who they want to be as a result of joining their lives with another person. So it's very relevant to many people. And it's also very empowering because in terms of the audience, I think a lot of people do feel after a breakup that they're almost half a person. Think about that phrase, "Oh, I'm with my other half." So by extension, sometimes people feel that when they break up with somebody, they're only half a person, that they're sad, that they're lonely. But this poem is saying, giving a really empowering message. Nowadays could almost be regarded as a feminist message, that you don't need somebody else. You don't need to share your life. You don't need to be with another person to be happy, because the person who has the potential to love you the most is yourself. So that is a really empowering message, and one of the reasons I like it so much, but I'll talk about that more a bit later. Okay, so now you understand the speaker's situation and the tone of the poem. You'll need to read it through again, this time with a pencil in hand, ready to annotate your ideas. What can you pick out about how the feelings are presented, and what devices does the Walcott use to convey his feelings? On the second reading, don't forget to comment on form and structure as well as the language used. Is there a regular rhyme scheme and meter? What are the topics of each stanza? And consider punctuation choices. So pause the video in order to write your own notes on the poem. Okay, so this time I'm going to take you through the poem, mentioning key details you could annotate. On this third reading, you can add to your copy of the poem in pen, confirming your own pencil ideas and adding more to it as well. Okay, so let's first think about form and structure. The poem is in 4 stanzas of varying lengths. There's no set rhyme or meter. This looser style may reflect the freedom with which we should look upon ourselves. Past, future, and present tense are all used in the poem, as the writer encourages the reader to consider their life and their account of themselves. The speaker begins with, "The time will come," reflecting an air of confidence and reassurance. The tone is commanding and direct in areas to set the reader at ease. We believe these words of assurance. Walcott makes use of caesura, which is breaks, which is pauses, and enjambement throughout. Enjambment is when one line or stanza flows onto the next. The use of caesura often breaks up imperative commands. Give wine, give bread, give back your hearts. So having those breaks, those caesura, basically give the reader time to think and reflect on what's just been said. And the enjambment gives the impression of the speaker's utmost confidence in the advice he is giving. Okay, so let's do some close analysis. Please write down anything you haven't got written down already. So, the time will come. The opening line is assertive in tone. It reassures the reader that the pain they are experiencing will be temporary. So, will, very commanding, especially if the reader may be feeling sad over the loss of a relationship. Having this really confident, assertive tone is very effective in achieving the intended effect of the poem, which is to empower people and make them realise that they should love themselves, and that's the most important type of love. You've got the word greet, indicating a warm welcome, implying fondness. Even if the fondness isn't there at the moment, the idea behind the poem is even if you've lost your love for yourself or that's diminished, it will come back if you give it time. You've got assonance of elation, emphasises the eventual joy you will experience, and note the choice of word elation. You won't just look at yourself with happiness or acceptance. You'll look at yourself with elation, so it's really big happiness. So again, creating this idea of great hope in your future love for yourself. So you've got the mirror, which is used as a metaphor throughout the whole poem, indicating it's about self-reflection and contemplation. So a metaphor that's used multiple times is called an extended metaphor. So an extended metaphor, mirror, symbolizing self-reflection and contemplation. So what distinguishes this poem from the others is whilst the others are about often lovers and the relationship with other people, this is all about looking upon yourself and your love for yourself, which is ultimately the most important love. And I don't mean that in a narcissistic, self-loving way, or in a selfish way, but purely there's a phrase, you've got to love yourself before you can love other people. Otherwise, the love for other people won't be true love. So maybe that's something to think about. So the extended metaphor of the mirror is really important in terms of capturing the purpose of the poem. So you've got command words, imperatives, if you want to call them that. Sit, eat, establishing the assertive tone. Again, the poet is reassuring the reader, and the reader is more likely to believe them because of the imperatives and the command words. Sit, eat, further emphasized by short sentences in places and caesura. So eat, you've got that one word sentence, one syllable sentence you could even say, which emphasizes the command and thus emphasizes also the assertive nature of the speaker, giving confidence to the reader that they know what they're talking about. Stranger. So that's an interesting word because it implies that you've lost yourself in the relationship you were in, and that recovery is learning to love the person you have forgotten again. Essentially, you need to prioritize yourself after neglecting yourself. So, stranger emphasizes just how much people lose themselves. It's not that they've got like a distorted image, it's that your true self, who you want to be, who you truly are, has become entirely distorted by the relationship you were in. So I suppose that could be evidence that maybe the relationship that you've just come out of is a toxic one. So you've got religious imagery and connotations of Holy Communion, conveying the idea of strength, well-being, and nourishment. So you've come out of a bad relationship and you're building yourself up again. You could even say it's similar to when we all went into lockdown. Sometimes when you're around people, you lose bits of yourself. Sometimes in a good way because people make you better, but sometimes you end up not being the person you want to be because you get influenced by other people and you find yourself reflecting sometimes, oh, how could I have done that? How could I have said that? That was stupid. And it's because you've lost bits of yourself because you're around other people all the time. So you could even extend this, it's even relevant, I would say, to taking time apart from other people, not necessarily romantic partners, just people in general, and being able to build yourself up, nourish yourself with your own thoughts and your own ideas and everything that you want to be and you want to do. And then when you go back to other people, you'll be a better person because you'll know who you are as a person, what you believe and what you think, and ultimately you can be the person you want to be. And so you've got knows you by heart, and that implies that only you know your core self, emphasizing rediscovery. Because maybe this is me being cynical, but you could argue that no matter how well somebody knows you, they'll never know you as well as you know yourself. Even if it's the big romantic love that so many poems we've looked at have been talking about, the kind of love that, potentially exists after death, like in an Arundel tomb. I would argue that, like Walcott, I think that you only know yourself truly. And that's why it's really important not to lose yourself and to remember that loving yourself is the most important kind of love. So, love letters, photographs, desperate notes. So, you've got a tricolon there, emphasizing that these are all the things that you need to get rid of because then it's kind of like a cleansing ritual to promote self-healing. You don't need these things. You don't need to look at the love letters, the photographs, the desperate notes. They're just remnants of a toxic relationship. Even if it wasn't that bad, it's now time to focus on yourself and so move away from those remnants of the past. Peel your own image. I really like that. It's a metaphor for taking control of your own destiny, not being reliant on somebody else. So you've got rid of, imagine, physically getting rid of those love letters, photographs, notes, all the paraphernalia of that relationship. And now instead, you're peeling that image of you from the mirror. So you're getting rid of everything that symbolizes other people or that other person, and now it's all about you. And then finally, sit. Again, it's a one sentence, one syllable, one word sentence, one syllable sentence. It's imperative, it's command. Again, creating the idea, giving the reader confidence in what the poem is saying. And a final command: feast on your life. Feast implies excess, presenting the notion that your life is rich and nourishing and you should indulge in it. So it's implying even though you may feel poor and destitute and sad and hungry for another person's love, don't be. Feast on your life. Appreciate how much wealth and richness and fulfillment, physically and mentally and emotionally, you can get from yourself. You don't need other people to make you happy. So please make sure, it's quite a short poem, which I'm sure you appreciate. I would argue that the best poems are on the shorter side because they're really dense in terms of ideas. And they're also, what I like about this one, the language is really simple. There's lots of short sentences. It's very easy to understand, but then it has so many layers of meanings. My favourite kinds of poems are always the ones which have simple language, but lots of layers of meaning, rather than the overly complex ones which you have to really pull apart to even barely understand. Maybe like an Arundel tomb. So I really enjoy this poem. So make sure you pause the video to jot down all the notes. So as usual, in addition to annotating a poem, we're going to capture the key ideas in our books. So as usual, I'd like you to note down the key ideas, make sure you've referenced the speaker and their feelings or perspective, have at least 3 quotations, mention literary terminology, points about language and structure, and consideration of key themes. But the absolute key thing which you need to do is answer the questions in red at the bottom of this slide. What are your thoughts on the poem? Do you agree or disagree with this message? And what has been your favourite poem so far and why? This is what I want you to what I want to see from you in terms of what you upload onto class charts. I am not interested for this poem to see your notes. I just want to see your answers to those questions, okay? So please make sure you've answered the questions on the bottom of the slide for me to see on class charts. So thoughts on the poem, agree or disagree, and favourite poem so far and why. Okay, so last 5 minutes of the lesson, make sure you know the quotations, your 3 quotations, really well, using any of the methods on the slide. In addition, there's a song, and when I read this poem, I immediately thought of this song. So I've got the link on class charts. You don't have to watch it. If you've come up to your hour, don't worry about it. But I think you'll enjoy it. And as an extra challenge, when you're watching it, try and think about the symbolism of the 2 people in the ring, okay? So a bit cryptic there. But I really like the song, definitely resonates with the poem or vice versa, and all the kind of like key themes and messages of the poem I think are captured really nicely within the song. So maybe if you have some time, jot down some ideas on the links between the song and the poem and let me know what you think. But again, you don't have to do that. I think it's just something you may enjoy as an optional extra. Okay, so thank you very much for your hard work today. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson as much as I have, or almost as much. I hope you have a lovely weekend, and I'll speak to you again next week. Okay, bye-bye.